Today we're going to look at some portfolios that you guys submitted. The goal of today's video is to hopefully better prepare those who are wanting to enter the commercial or entertainment space within the art industry, as things are a little rocky right now. We'll be talking about what technical aspects might be holding your work back, common portfolio mistakes, and tips that might help your work stand out to an art director. Today we're joined yet again by Lauren Brown, who is not only an accomplished artist herself. Lauren Brown is an art director at Wizards of the Coast who has over 14 years of experience. Today she's going to give us some insight on what art directors like to see in your portfolio, and hopefully how to help you better navigate getting hired within the art industry. I think the first one you wanted to look at was Meg Illustrated.
Yes. Yes, this portfolio caught my eye because I really like the sensibility and the point of view in the illustrations, but there are some things that I think could be worked on here, so I don't know, I wanted to talk to them.
So first off, they said they weren't sure what industry their work fit in the most, or like would be the most successful for. They'd love feedback on that. And they're also open to working in, whatever industry it is. They seem unsure where they fit best.
Yeah, this work is obviously very illustrative. It can go in many different areas. I think tabletop obviously is like one of the ones that I think about first when I look at art like this. Not necessarily like the big studios, but something smaller, like more indie board games and things like that. But the thing about illustrated work is like when you have a strong point of view and when you have a specific style that you go with, your work can go into many different directions, or you can also be an independently led illustrator, which I know a lot of people don't like to hear. Because if you're determined to do studio work, then you're like, well, I want to work in a studio. I don't want to have to run my own career. But I think for people who have an illustration focus, it does make a good amount of sense to do, to do freelance or to do the convention scene or whatever it is. It's really hard to say like, oh, definitely this or definitely that. Because when you have strong foundational skills, you can really go anywhere as long as you have some kind of experience to back you up and make it easier to enter into that industry. So it really, I also want artists to have more of a idea of where they might want to go. Like, where do you actually want to end up? Because I can tell you, hey, you can work in this industry all day, but if that's not actually where you want to go and that's not where your passion lies, it's not going to show in your work if you're trying to tailor yourself to a specific industry that you're not really into. So I think about the things that you're inspired by and encouraged by, and see what the portfolios for that industry tend to look like. That's the best advice I can give about that.
Yeah, I think that was always, I know, like, obviously I'm not an art director. I've done a little teaching and stuff like that, but I think that was one of the biggest things, even like with like college level students, is the thing that I felt like really was holding their portfolio back is they didn't know where they wanted to be. So it was like really hard to like give them advice on which way to go, because art is so subjective. And like, even this portfolio is beautiful. But like, if they want to go into, say, game art or for very specific things, or they want to go into animation, or they want to be like a book publisher, like, my advice would be very different. And I don't even know the industry as like well as you do. So I would say that this elf sword piece is beautiful. I really love the detail here. And then like this, I believe this like raven or this crow, like it's beautiful work. Like it's definitely, I think, they could find work. I think it was like Devin gave me this advice at one point where she was like, make your portfolio look like you're already in the industry. And that's like the easiest way to get hired. I don't know if that reigns true to you.
I think so. I think that, once again, it just depends on what industry you're going for. If you're presenting yourself as an illustrator, then obviously this is the kind of stuff that I would expect to see. And if you're trying to get hired for, say, game art or like tabletop game art or card art, things like that, and that's the kind of work that you have, I think this is a totally fine setup for a portfolio for that specific purpose. So this artist is definitely not off base at all. The advice that I would give would be more so technical, because this artist has such a great sense of composition and design and line quality, but there are certain details that are also falling a little bit flat in terms of the treatments of them. Like for example, the fur in this wolf. We have such beautiful flowers and such beautiful forms here, and I think the fur may still need to be resolved, or I think that, this artist hasn't quite figured out yet how to make this material fit within the realm of the style. And I think that that potential for finessing is right there, and once that's finessed, it's going to be so much stronger for that. And also, think like paying attention to things like these clouds and making sure that this lighting is consistent, making sure that you understand where your light source is coming from. Having a good sense of reference and being able to build off of that, using your style as, what you're creating ultimately from that reference is going to be very important. But the things that do here resonate with me is the way that this artist incorporates these flowers and these beautiful framing devices, these animals and these figures with this action. Same deal with the wolves. Like, make sure you're referencing actual wolves. Make sure that your anatomy is down, because if you're gonna put creatures front and center, you have to make sure that those creatures are solid. And I'm seeing right now that there's like just inconsistency in the skull, and just there's just things there that technically need to be resolved. But the illustration style, the potential is all there. The style is beautiful. So I think that that's not really a hard line to cross in terms of just elevating that. It's just using more reference and making sure that you're really, sticking by understanding what animal anatomy is, understanding how to render certain materials within the realm of your own style, and seeing what rules you want to apply to this. That's generally what I would say about this portfolio. But overall, it's a strong showing of it, and I think that the elevation is like right there. But I think the presentation does work for me. I think I get a sense of the artist's point of view and their voice. And so that's a really good, that's a good thing. So there's a lot of portfolios I see that feel very muddy in terms of what they're trying to present. And this artist has a solid point of view.
If you were to like be presented with this portfolio, would you suggest taking out some of these, like it looks like some of these pieces are older or like not at the same level, like maybe like this green cat reindeer chimera looking guy. It's a great piece, but it's just not at the same level as the other ones, and there's a couple more like that. I feel like it's bringing down the whole portfolio a bit, and I would suggest just like I don't know what like number of pieces is like ideal for a portfolio, but I know for me, I want to see like I rather see like 4 or 5 like really amazing ones and then nothing else.
Yeah, I am exactly in the same boat, and that's a very good suggestion. I tell a lot of people that because I see a lot of things presented in the portfolio, I think, to pad it out, when in reality, your portfolio is only as strong as your weakest piece. So you want to make sure that anything in your portfolio, if you find yourself looking at it with someone and they're reviewing your portfolio and you're cringing at it, that's a great sign. Take it out. You don't need to have it in there because you're already embarrassed of the piece. If you know it's older, if you find yourself making excuses for anything, take it out. You don't need to have it. If it's not the best showing of your skill set, or if it's not telling me anything new about you as an artist, take it out. If it's not finished and it's not funneling up to a finished concept, take it out. So that's a lot of the advice that I have to give, is like, call and edit your portfolio down to the best pieces that you have to show of it. It has to be the most stellar examples of your work.
I see. Okay, great. Should we move on to the next one?
Let's do it. I did want to look at Minute Sarah. Just really amazing art and a really good presentation and showing of, a convention artist. They do apparel, they do, they table, they have a really cool illustration style. It reminds me a little bit of Sachin Tang. Really, really nice stuff. And I think part of the reason why I wanted to talk to this portfolio, because I think I don't really get portfolios that look like this very often, just in general submissions.
So it sounds like they're getting into some shows, but then they're getting rejected from other ones. Is there any hope for me at anime convention spaces, primarily with original work? Good question. What are the weakest links in my portfolio? Do I need an artist blurb on my page? Why is product photography the worst? Okay.
You do a great job with product photography, but not everybody does. It's really hard. But
oh, it's a struggle, and there's pieces that I have not put on my website that like are best sellers because I cannot get a good photo of them.
Oh my god.
It doubles and triples your sales instantly. Honestly, there's pieces that like the photography, like how it's being used, especially when it's not a print, when it's like a product.
Yeah.
The photography is so important to like the consumer space.
What I will say is that this artist doesn't seem like they have bad product photography, so they have that going for them for sure. I don't really have like too many notes on them. I do think like this cute beanie here, like maybe put it on a person just to show like an example of like a human being wearing it. But it's, I like the details in the embroidery, and you can get a sense of the quality of it, which is really nice.
Oftentimes also when you have multiple different types of products, like with I think I saw a sketchbook and then the washi tape, oftentimes you could do like it in like a desk setup where you're seeing multiple products all in like one go. Obviously you don't want that for your thumbnail when you're like trying to showcase one particular product, but it can bring interest to the page. Certainly it becomes like a lifestyle almost photo shoot in a way.
Because you want people to be able to create the through line of purchasing the product and actually utilizing the product. So showing the practical use is going to be really important for this, for highlighting that product. But as a thumbnail image, as a base showing of what the washi tape could look like, I think that is not so bad. But I do like this one where it's like Fishy's washi tape and it's, you can see the tape actually being utilized. I think overall the art that you have shown here in this portfolio is really, I really like the style. Again, it does remind me a lot of Section Tang, where like the deconstruction of elements and that kind of smoky quality. So I'm wondering if that's an influence. I like the consistent use of color scheme. I like that, again, it's clear to kind of see what you find important and what you kind of enjoy creating. I think that this little fish here, and I think the smoke here a little bit, you go so tight in the rendering for the food illustration, and then I think that it could probably get a little bit tighter when it comes to these elements like this decorative cloud that goes around this raven, or just like the wave that's going around the fish, because it's showing that you're approaching your design with intention, and you really do pay attention to that detail. But that's a very minor note. It's probably not going to stop anybody from buying it, because again, it's like a very pleasing image. I can see how marketable it is. I am curious of the pixel art inclusion, because I'm wondering how, like, where that lives in relation to the rest of the body of work. Maybe a separate section for that, or are you branching out to that? The pixel art is really good, and I kind of just want to see that built out. Like, maybe don't highlight it until you have like a good body of work around that style, because again, you don't want to muddy up your presentation too much. And I love it a lot, but I think that you set up an expectation that I was going to get this very, kind of like half graphic, half illustrative type of style. The pixel art is a bit of a swing for sure, but it comes from the same point of view.
It's also the only fan art on this page as well, so it's like furthermore a swing in the other direction.
Yeah.
I do love the deconstruction pieces, especially the ones that like have mechanical or like man-made elements like fused with the more organic. Yeah. I think, like you said, with the raven and even slightly the fish, when it's like organic on organic, it's not as strong. But like, with this teapot and even the sandwich and the sword, it has elements of like these organic elements kind of fusing in with like man-made things. And there's something about that geometry and stuff that I find like extremely appealing. And I think that's where the strength of this portfolio is.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. When it comes to illustration, especially when you're selling your work, you really want to think about how to subvert expectations with a concept, or to fully lean into a style that you have. Are you giving them a world? Are you giving them, something to think about? Like, what kind of person is going to be putting this on their wall? And I think that audience is clearly defined with the sandwich and the teapot, the sword, the camera. The raven is a little bit... Yeah, it's just like a raven in clouds. It's like, it's a nice illustration, but what is it telling me? I'm not quite sure. So just think about that point of view behind every illustration. Like, what are you communicating? What story are you telling? Or what kind of concept are you trying to get people to put together in their heads when they're looking at a piece of yours? And I'm working with my mentees on this right now, too, approaching their illustrations with more intent and actually like really fleshing out a concept before bringing it to final, to make sure that you are presenting the strongest foot forward. Because a lot of the thinking is one of the biggest parts of illustration.
I almost would like to see the way they've done their pixel work like attributed to like their more illustrative stuff.
Yeah.
Obviously I love Pokemon. I mean, like, easy sell for me, but that it's not for everybody. But I think the way they've done their pixel work is done really well. It's just so disconnected, and I think is really popular right now, especially in the convention space.
Definitely.
So if there's a way to like fuse that a bit, I would be really interested in it. As a consumer, I'm not an art director. I'm not hiring anybody, but I'd buy that shit.
I would buy it too. I'd definitely buy it. Like, especially the deconstructed like elements, or like, I don't know, just the unique way that you approach it. I do see a lot of people when they do a style swing, they do veer in a different direction because they don't quite know how to handle that style yet. And it's not saying that that's happening here, because it seems like it's a well-handled, well-fleshed out style. There's a clear rule set going on, but you don't have to forsake your personal identity for pixel art unless you really want to. It seems like you enjoy Pokemon a lot, but maybe, I don't know, is Caterpie coming apart, or like is like, yeah, are flowers growing inside of the head of like an onyx? Like, I don't know. If you're gonna do fan art in Pokemon, I think that there's a lot of ways that you can approach that topic and subject matter, or you don't have to do fan art, and you can do original art in pixels and just take your illustrations and bring them over to pixels. I think that could be really cool too.
I definitely agree. I think the strongest, fan art is work that didn't necessarily have to be fan art. Like the design and construction of it was so strong, it would have been an interesting piece anyways. And then you just throw in that nostalgia element, whatever you're going for, of fan art, and then it's just like free money or whatever.
Yeah, the interesting thing too is that I see that there's sticker sheets in this pixel style, which is so cute. This tiny duck pond is adorable. And I know that some people are torn between many different worlds and don't quite know where to go because they enjoy pixel art. They also enjoy doing illustration. They also enjoy doing, design work. And it's like people struggle with finding where they want to put that specific expression of work. I think exploring it as different kinds of merch types can be helpful, because if you build out a series of these pixel stickers, for example, it fulfills that need to have that pixel art, but it's in another form, and then you have your illustration work. I don't know, I don't know if that's a good suggestion, but I think that might be a way to alleviate that need to want to explore different things, to have a series of that specific expression of style. To answer her questions too, in terms of getting work in the anime convention space, I think it's really about continuously trying to persevere and keeping yourself unique within that space, which I think she is. But it can be really tricky to to try to put this expression of yourself out there and then get rejected from shows. Go in it with the knowledge that some of the best artists that I know have been rejected from shows, so it's not just you. It's just because the space is more competitive, because the job market is terrible and artists have found other ways to support themselves. So keep heart, keep applying. I think your work is great, and I wish you good luck. So the next one that I wanted to look at was Chinwei Animation.
Okay, let me see what their questions were real quick. How does one find their way into the industry at a time with great uncertainty and change? Great question. How can I improve my portfolio? What is something recruiters look for in portfolios?
All right, so yeah, I was drawn to this portfolio because I like the specific point of view of this VizDev artist. And I also wanted to talk to, again, different industries. And this one obviously would be for animation. So I'm only going to stay within the visual development range of the portfolio, because that's what's been presented to me. But I do like that there's a lot of great usage of shape language. There's a lot of really good movement in this portfolio. Some unique character designs, and I feel like I saw this girl with the gap in one of the other submissions as well, which is really funny. It's they must have worked on a team. There are some character designs here that really intrigued me a lot, and I think that I really want this artist to just keep that unique point of view and sensibility strong in their work, because there's so much noise out here and so many people trying to apply for the same job. VizDev is probably one of the most competitive, animation-focused industries right now. I mean, not right now, but just in general, but especially right now, because there's so few VizDev jobs available. And in order to get one, you usually have to be really high on the upper echelon of a visual development artist. I'm talking like Bobby Chu or whatever. It's people who just are insane. It's such a competitive field that I don't want to discourage anybody from trying to apply and go towards that part of the industry. But what I do want to encourage them to do is to start to find skill sets that are very unique to your own sensibility. Something that you find that you do that is not commonly done by other people. Something that you can highlight in your own work that might make you stand out. Because I think if you're just doing character design and general environment work, etc., there's so many people doing that at such a high level that it's going to be really hard to get yourself noticed.
To continue with what you were saying, I think when you're trying to enter the visual development space specifically, because that's a little bit where my background comes from, is I always found it to be very difficult to enter, especially as a character designer.
Oh yeah.
Entering as a prop designer, entering as a background artist, there's a lot less competition. Not saying that there isn't competition, because there's a ton regardless, but the entry level can be a lot smaller, and there's just less people you're competing with, and then sometimes it can be easier to transfer over into, say, a character design position if you can impress whoever you're working for. kind of like you were saying, that knowledge you have within like whatever pipeline or industry you're working with definitely makes you stand out. Like, you know, if you learn rigging or if you learn lighting for like animation, like those are jobs that like people are never prepared for right out of college or like right out of the gate. So like, yeah, it's a lot easier to get an entry level position for something like that than like character design, where everybody's portfolio kind of has aspects of that in it.
I completely agree with you. I mean, I actually entered the animation industry as a background artist too, so it's something that I can speak to directly. I wasn't expecting to be a background artist, but I had done so much of it when I was at school for other people's student films that I was able to get noticed for that work, and they were like, hey, we want to take a chance on you. We'd like to have you in the studio. And it helped me cut through the noise having background work in my portfolio where all these people were trying to go for character design. So having this portfolio be mostly character focused work, I'm really curious to see like what else you bring to the table. I see you have storyboarding, which is great. Storyboarding is also very competitive, and people function with that at a very high level as well. So just think about what skills you can really highlight for yourself and like what kinds of other options you might have to learn and focus on in your work, just to fortify what you're bringing to the table. In terms of the actual character work itself, like you have a really good sense of movement, which I really like. I like you have a very strong line of action. I think that this expression sheet here, this 2E character, is really, really cute. And I think that you are breaking maybe one of the fundamental rules about character design, because in the 2E rough turnaround, you're using a different side profile than you are on the expression sheet. And the profile on the expression sheet is so much more appealing than the one in the turnaround, because you're breaking so many of the shapes here that were really appealing from this the expression sheet. So like be so very careful about things like that, because those kinds of things as a viz dev artist are one of the biggest things that you have to look out for. The animators have to have a consistent sheet to reference from. If they're having these two conflicting messages, they're going to get confused as to which one to go with. So make sure that like anybody who's going for character design, biz dev, stuff like that, the details are extremely important, especially with simpler character designs like this, where you really want to make sure the animators have the exact reference, the source of truth. That's where that's coming from, is you. So make sure it's all locked down. Make sure that your faces, and the way that your face, you have your expressions, the way the face distorts is consistent. You're using the same rule set. Because I'm seeing some breaking in, this Valerie expression sheet. We're going all over the place a little bit with your range of facial expression. So just make sure that there's a rule set for that. The thing I wanted to talk about as well is the character designs a little bit lower in the portfolio. I don't know, the style for this is so cool. I really like it a lot. And I kind of want to see more of it, honestly. Like, Rack and Anya are so awesome.
These are fun.
I don't see characters like this really ever, and I feel like this expression is so unique. I wanted to have you specifically here just so I can encourage you to not shy away from things that really break the mold of what is seen out in the world, because this is where the real gold is. I love the representation of the character. I love the stylization. It's so extreme, but it's clear that you know anatomy. It's clear that you know pleasing shapes and colors. And I just want to see more of it.
It's funny because Sang and I also entered like viz dev in the same way through like background on the internet. Like, I think I'm much more well known for my character work, but like I've never done character design professionally.
Oh, really?
So yeah, it's always been background or like props, or like I've done some costuming work. Or like outfits, but like I've never designed the characters officially. So, and also the thing about like, I wasn't interested in backgrounds when I first got into it, but that's what I was offered. But I actually found it really relaxing because I could go to work, do backgrounds, and then I wasn't burnt out on doing those like fun character designs I wanted to do for myself when I got home.
Yes.
So that's also something to think about. Obviously, work towards your goals, but having a plan B and C in the meantime stepping stones to get there is also probably a good thing.
Yeah, I definitely agree. And my take for when I did backgrounds was so similar to that. I could turn my brain off and just let myself paint a background, listen to a podcast or an audiobook, and the day would be over. And I really also found myself enjoying that field of work, even though I did not expect it at all. I was also someone who wants to go into character design. And I ended up doing character designs for some things at my studio. I don't think any of them were ever actually used on TV, but some of them were, became the official designs for the shows. It just never got made. But yeah, it's just, you just never know how your career is going to look. But it's really important to keep an open mind, especially when it comes to animation, because there are so many things that could potentially be appealing, and it may be slightly off the goal, but it's still a foot in the door. So there's no shame in not getting a job for exactly like what you wanted, because that's just a path to get there, or you find yourself falling in love with something else that's adjacent to it. Richard and Wynn.
I currently want to find more permanent type jobs. I found that sometimes have either too much work at once or none at all. That's always how it is. I'm currently going on a dry spell. There's a lot of people are going on a dry spell right now. The whole industry, I know with like animation in LA right now is just like nobody has work. So everybody's trying to find work elsewhere, which is then making all the other industries more competitive at the same time, as they're just not being work in those fields. That's I think the sad reality a lot of times about like being a working artist is like, especially nowadays, I would always suggest having like a plan B and C. And that's why you see a lot of people going into the convention space or like trying to find jobs elsewhere. So adaptability is always like definitely a good skill you want to have.
Absolutely. I also give the advice of adaptability for sure.
My favorite thing in this portfolio actually was the pixel art. There is a pixel art version.
Oh, that's so lovely. No, this is really nice, because the thing about stuff like this, I think this actually speaks really well to the portfolio that we were looking at from Minute Sarah, because we see the illustration adapted into pixel art. So it's a very successful expression of both styles. And the fact that there's animation really brings the piece to life. There's like very few small technical things that I think could be finessed. Like this tree in the foreground could probably be more thought out, because everything else is so well done. So I think when you have a really strong illustration style, make sure everything is matching quality, just so there's nothing bringing that singular piece down. But I love the fact that it's ambient animation. It's so delightful.
I know, when I found that, I was like, oh,
yeah.
So good. Did you see the Frog Palace?
Things like this I really enjoy, because it also shows the thought process behind the approach and design. Having little breakdowns like this, having preliminary sketches. I really also appreciate that the preliminary sketches are on the same page as the final, just because we could directly see where the concept came from and like where it ultimately ended up. It's not to say that you necessarily have to have it formatted like this, but this is a pleasing way to format it. We love a good cutaway moment. This is great. I think that the perspective is a little bit broken here, so just finesse that if you're going to have such a strong, tight showing everywhere else. You don't want to lose quality at any point. As an art director, I'm also looking for consistency in terms of attention to detail and approach. And if I see very inconsistent treatment of how you apply certain details, like if you really tighten up and polish one aspect and leave off the details in another, I may be less inclined to want to hire you, just because I don't know if you're going to kind of not spend time on the thing that I want you to spend time on, and I don't want to have to spend time giving you feedback about, hey, like, make sure you tighten up this detail. Like, I want to see that in your portfolio already. So it's just it's a minor note, because I think it's very easy to fix, but just keep that in mind.
I commission people every now and then for funsies, and the biggest thing that will deter me from a portfolio, and obviously this is very small scale, is like if the portfolio is not consistent, because I just don't know what I'm going to get.
Yes. And for me, like for my job specifically, that's key, that the portfolio is consistent in terms of whenever I see like a really solid character drawing and then a few pieces later, the anatomy is a little bit broken or something clearly is wrong, I'm like, oh, like maybe they actually can't apply this consistently, so I might pass on this portfolio in favor of somebody who always shows that they know how to apply their rules for their specific style well. And I like to see at least 10 pieces that corroborate that story, because in order to hire somebody for any commission, not just wizards, but anybody, I want to make sure that you can do the work and I know exactly what kind of result I'll get. I really resonate with this portfolio, because I just love when people go for it in terms of shit. Like, what? A banana with a little cozy around, like a banana potion? Like, what is this? I love this.
Yeah.
It's fruit potions.
Yeah. I think I would feel pretty confident hiring this person if I, was looking for this type of work.
Yeah, I think so too. I think that this is a really solid great. This is a great showing of it. So especially your prop design is sick. It's very consistent. So good job on that. Okay, so Jolene Garcia.
Oh yeah, this is beautiful work.
Yeah.
Oh my god.
Also, I'm a simple woman. If I see getting the ninth, I click.
Yeah, this person's gonna steal all my jobs. What the heck?
Sorry, Dustin.
That's okay. It's all right. I got this YouTube thing. It's fine.
It's fine.
My goal is to getting freelance work in the TTRPG and TCG spaces, Dungeons and Dragons and Magic the Gathering specifically. While I work on getting my art to the technical level needed, it can feel sometimes that it is not my own. Chasing a specific look while maintaining my artistic voice has shown to be more of a challenge than ever. What are the technical aspects you think I should improve and work on? Do you think my work is headed into the right direction, or does it fit into what an AD might be looking for? So maybe an AD specifically at Wizards? Question mark? I don't know. Do you think I should include any other of my work on my portfolio? Thank you so much.
Yeah. These are all great questions, and I think the blurb is great too. Your voice, Jolene, is not getting lost here. I think that it's clear what you're interested in, and you seem like you have a very consistent sense of rendering and style. Honestly, don't have a ton of feedback. I do think that there's some materials that may be a little bit muddy in terms of rendering. Again, just make sure that your color sensibility is really strong. I just think that, just keep paying attention to your materials, like when you're doing stone versus fabric versus skin, that everything feels distinct from one another. But it's really just like in the minor details and finessing that rather than an overall like overhaul of your portfolio. I was really interested in the fact that you had done like basically a scene type thing, where in Magic we'll have this thing called scene cards where it's one big illustration that's separated out into different specific cards, and like each part of the illustration is isolated into its own card. And so it's cool that you've done that. It's really hard to balance all those elements. But I think also in yours, things are kind of getting muddy for the whole scene. Like, just make sure that you're, like, where you're putting your focus, where you're putting your lighting, your contrast is fully realized when you're working on something so complicated. But that's very minor, because you've done a great job of balancing that. Because your portfolio is so strong, once again, anything that stands out, like the arms master, for example, the anatomy is feeling a little bit broken here in terms of like this posing and movement. So stuff like that is really going to stand out in your portfolio. So just make sure that you're really referencing that pose and make sure it feels believable in the context that you're presenting it in. I really love the Gideon and Ninth fan art a lot. Like, I recognize them immediately. It's a really good book series, and I was like, oh, I know what this is. But I think that having fan art in your portfolio, I think a lot of people ask this question too, is again totally appropriate as long as it fits within your personal voice already, like how you're approaching your illustrations. You're not copying something that's specific to the IP. You're putting your own spin on it.
Yeah, this Birthright piece is like beautiful, and I also really like this Baldur's Gate one, the Act 2 one.
Oh yeah, I saw that.
So very strong. I would also like to add that we didn't get to any of them, but I saw a lot of people, because I do Lorcana, so like asking about like putting like Disney fan art in portfolios and trying to show their skills that way to like get hired by maybe specifically those companies. And again, not an art director, I don't hire for any of those places, but my view on it, because I see who they're hiring and who they're not, is when I see people put like specifically Disney IP in their portfolio to try to show off that they can do the characters, if it is not like 100% on model, it almost hurts you. Yes. I would rather see the style, like if you had done that like same work as like your own character, then they're not going to know that it's not on model, right? Yeah. And maybe that art director, once you're hired, can help you along with it. But I would say either like make sure you're 100% on model, or it's so stylized that it doesn't matter. I think a lot of the portfolios I see, specifically with Disney stuff, a lot of times, and I know this is not this portfolio at all, but it kind of made me think about the fan art aspect. I think actually is harming those portfolios in a lot of ways.
Yeah, no, that's a really good call out. Because I see it on my end too, when people they're like, oh, I want to do fan art of this thing so that I can, be more appealing to an art director. I think for me as an art director personally, I don't really need to see that so much. I know some art directors do like to see it though, especially if I think it really does come down to the expression of that fan art piece. Because if you've really elevated the character, if you've highlighted everything about them, and it's not something so strict as, like, for example, Disney, which has a very specific specification on how you're supposed to represent the character. If you do get to do your own take on it, like, how are you really, like, highlighting that? I know there's a lot of artists who have gotten hired for specific fan art in their portfolio, and has even made their career around it, or has been in the top list of consideration. Because in any studio that I've been in, when you're making a new project that is, like, with an existing licensor or IP, you tend to look at the fan art that's already out there, because that's a really, you know, the highest echelon of fan art out there is a good expression of what approach you can go with working with a licensor. And sometimes that person who has that expression will be the main one who gets hired for that specific task. So it's, I know that I think it definitely worked like that for Lorcana. It really is going to be how you represent and portray those characters. Like, how are you applying your viewpoint to them? How are you using your voice to elevate it?
I actually have a pet peeve. People who are putting, like, multiple links for their portfolio. Like, I don't know what you want me to see. So right off the bat, I almost am ignoring those ones. Portfolios that have passwords, because this is going to be on YouTube and public, it makes me think that you don't want it public, so I ignored those. And if you're okay with it being on public, then why does it have a password? That's my only question there. Things that, like, hit landing pages without going to, like, either your VizDev link or your this link, like, because we were so specific on, like, this is what you want to show to, like, a specific client, when there was, like, a million different categories, I also kind of didn't look as closely at those portfolios.
Yeah, because very likely it was going to be muddy. I think this is honestly a really good call out. As somebody who has, you know, hired for several different jobs over the course of my career, with the influx of the amount of artists that are applying for the same roles, my biggest advice is to make it as easy as possible to get that art director or that recruiter to your work. Don't make me jump through any hoops. I don't want to have to click more than once to get to your work. Like, it's because we're going through such a high volume of portfolios that any resistance is like, okay, like, I can't even look at this. It's not loading. So make sure that your website is optimized. Make sure that you do have one link. Make sure that when you're presenting your portfolio, that is the expression that you want that recruiter to see. Do not bury the lead in any way, shape, or form. Like, have that landing page of, like, have a gallery showcasing your best work, and then if you have specific categories, that's great. But make it easy. Test it for yourself and have somebody else test it for you, so that they can tell you how easy it is to get to. But I think especially now, when there's such a high volume, this is so key. Make it easy for us. Make my life easier. I beg you.
And I don't mean that to be mean. You know, if we got 5 submissions, then yeah, maybe I take that time to look at them all, because assuming that, like, we're art directors hiring somebody, then, like, you know, I gotta find somebody out of those 5 people. But when you have 100 people, you know, I gotta get through them, right?
I 100% agree.
Yeah, I mean, I use ArtStation. I get bullied for it sometimes, but that's where my, like, main portfolio is. And I mean, that's mostly because, like, when I meet an art director, it's normally at a con. So it's not like they've found my website. If I was, like, solely relying on, like, freelance work and, like, people seeing my portfolio online, I'd probably upgrade. But for my purposes, it's quick, it's easy to update, and it worked. So, you know.
Yeah, and I think there's nothing wrong with that. I look at plenty of art stations when I'm reviewing portfolios, so it's not unusual.
I'm very thankful to everybody who submitted. I wish we could go through everybody. There's tons of beautiful work in here that we didn't talk about. I know we tried to pick people who, like, were in very different industries and at very different skill levels to try to, like, hopefully that helps, like, everybody in that kind of category. Obviously that's not the perfect approach, but with the limited time, I hope that was the goal.
My other word of advice is that no matter what industry you're applying to, you always have to make sure that that polish level is there. Make sure that your work is up to the scratch of what we would see in a professional presentation of work. Like Dustin said earlier, like, make art as if you are a professional, even if you're a student. I honestly, like, if I see a portfolio with any student work or student projects in there, it's almost automatically, like, a no for me. because I can tell that you're not ready. If I see a sack animating, I'm not going to go for it because I know what I know what that is. It's an assignment. An assignment is not portfolio work. An assignment is for your own study and practice. It doesn't belong there. I think the other word of advice is that if you're doing things that are industry standard, like for example a turnaround, and you're doing a turntable, I'm looking at a turntable right now for one of the portfolios that was submitted, that if you're going to turn it, if you're going to take the time to animate that GIF, make sure that that thing is not snapping around. You have to make that, that thing has to be clean. So spend time with your work, spend time with the polish, put the effort in, because we will see that. We've seen so many portfolios that we know what good looks like, and this industry is just way too competitive to phone it in any aspect of your work. Make sure you're using your reference. Make sure you're using it well. Make sure you know your anatomy. All these things. And again, make sure that your portfolio is accessible. And just think about the fact that everything that you're giving me on your website is also a piece of art. I'm judging not just based on what your work is, even though that's the main expression, but how you've organized your information, what kind of presentation you're giving me, how you've presented your name and your logo and the layout of your page, because all of that is art too. So don't ignore the elements of art that I will see in any part of the process that I'm engaging with your work. Think about everything as your final polish and presentation. That all goes into the package of your portfolio.
Yeah. Damn. I'm learning things.
I'm trying to encourage a lot of people to, if they have the ability and means to do it, to pursue independent projects and try to get something off the ground, like maybe make a team, find your community. Oh my God, community is like the biggest thing. It's the most important thing, I think, is having a community of people who you talk about art with, who you're building something up with, or at least you're working on your own projects and you're like checking in with them. Please, especially during this time, please don't be creating things in a vacuum. This is not the time to do that. You need to lean on your community and find other people who are doing these things as well, who are motivating themselves, because this is tough times, and we find things through talking to each other. That's how I found most of my jobs, is by my friends being like, hey, there's a job that I thought you would be perfect for, or hey, I'm working at the studio and I want to work with you. That community was invaluable for me as an artist and as a professional. So lean on your community. That's a bit of a non sequitur, but I think it's really important to talk about.
We're almost out of time, but any last thoughts?
Any last thoughts? I just want to thank everybody for, submitting their portfolios and putting the work into what you do. I think that this is a great time to focus on your personal development as an artist. There's a lot of mentorships out there. There's a lot of opportunities that allow you to grow your skill set, especially if you're just casting your resume and portfolio out into the void and it feels like you're never getting any callbacks. I want everybody to ask themselves, is this the best use of my time, and could it be better spent elsewhere? I think that also in this field, there really is no shame in taking work that is not within the realm of art. It can be like, just a part-time job to get you by, or something that doesn't draw so much of your energy, so that you can go home and focus on building up your skill set as an artist. Because I think that, again, when you get submissions that are 1,000+ portfolios, only the 1% top of talent is going to be considered even remotely for those jobs. If you know you are not there in skill set yet, then I highly recommend you keep practicing, keep honing and building, but don't give up. Please do not give up. We need you out here. We want to see your voice. We want to see your unique expression, but take the time to really build yourself up, and maybe also tread the unbeaten path that is off what everybody else is applying for. I love that each and every one of you are here, and I don't want to see anybody giving up their career because it's so tough right now. I think it will get better eventually, but it's going to take time, and this is a very unprecedented time in the industry. It's really hard. A lot of things we're competing with. So don't lose hope. Keep making your art. Keep working on yourself. And I wish you the best of luck.
Where can they find you?
You can find my work at labillustration.com. Anywhere on social media at labillustration. That's just my illustration work that I do. I'll be at MumbleCon. I'll be at Gen Con. I'll be at DragonCon. I'm attending Lightbox Expo, but I'm not tabling this time. Thank goodness. I'm so excited to be an attendee again. I will be doing portfolio reviews at Lightbox, so that's exciting. And also, please find me also on my podcast called Painted in Color on YouTube. That is Painted in Color. I do that podcast with my co-hosts Mia Araujo and Eric Wilkerson, and I think we are going to be posting episode 78 very soon. So check that out. We work really hard on it, and I think that if you wanted more questions answered, we talk about a lot of different topics in the art industry as well, so we might end up answering a lot of those questions for you.
Well, thank you so much, Lauren, for joining us today. I always appreciate it. It always is a huge help.
Thank you so much for having me on, Dustin. Seriously, it's always a pleasure. I love doing this with you.
So I